welcome back. Today we are continuing our load development process project for our Seekins Precision PH3 6.5Creedmoor. This one, it's going to be a kind of a continuation, and we're going to keep going with different components, I guess. I've tried, so far, I've been shooting the Hornady 143 grain ELDX. It's kind of the bullet that I was hoping to go with for this rifle. I'm trying to develop a load for hunting. This is going to be for southeast deer hunting. So this is going to be for sure within 100 yards, so I don't need anything extreme. The loads that I have developed so far, I have gotten under 1-inch groups already, which would really suffice. Is really all that I need. But I'm continuing on just because I know the rifle is capable of so much better. I know that I'm capable of shooting better. So with the combination, I know that we can get down and see 1/2-inch groups. So that's what I'm just trying to put together at this point. Now, so far I've been developing loads or creating ammo with kind of just following the book recipes. I've tried some different powder charges. I've really been sticking to the H4350. That's kind of the powder that I want to use for this, because that's what in my other 6.5 Creedmoor rifles is primarily what I shoot. The other rifles that I shoot, though, I use different bullets. I use ELD match. I do have some A-tips, and then I shoot a lot of Burger bullets as well. We've talked about that in a little bit before. One of the differences in when I'm doing the target loads, and I've gone over my reasoning before, but I'm using the small primer pocket brass for my target loads, and for these hunting loads, I'm doing the large rifle primers. So one change or difference there. With the load development process I'm doing, and I know this is more opinion, and everybody's going to say different things. I know that I can get more consistency and more accuracy if I'm using once fired or fire formed brass, right? Well, so I have 800 rounds of already fired or pre-fired brass in small rifle primer. I didn't have any in the large rifle primer, so I ordered 300 Lapua cases in large rifle primer. And so all of this load development is going to be based on brand new brass. That's one thing, when you're doing load development, use one or the other. Don't mix it, because that changes things and you're going to get different variations as far as that goes, like everybody knows. But if you're new and trying to figure things out, I did meet a guy one time that was starting out, and he was doing load development, but he only had 100 rounds of brass that he bought, and he was like, brass is expensive if you get the good brass. So he had shot some, and then he resized that brass, and then he was throwing that back in the mix with his new brass and going from there. And, I guess his thinking was that when he resized the brass, it was going to be the same as the new brass. And that's not always the case. Yeah, you can measure it out and get it pretty, close or the same. But when you're doing the fire form brass, you probably want to make some changes to the shoulder and all that. But anyway, everybody's got different opinions on everything. It's always funny to me when people, it almost comes down to almost a level of ignorance. They think that their experiences and their opinions are just in stone and the only way it can be. It's just funny talking to some people. They're like, oh yeah, you've got to do it this way. This is, how it works. Well, no, I mean, it's not really how it works. But everybody has their own way. Everybody has their own opinion, different methods. Now, there are like tried and true methods that are going to work more across the board, and then some of the real experimental things or whatever you want to do. But to each your own. What I'm trying to say is everybody figure out how you want to do these things and your method of doing things and just run with that. I mean, yeah, talk to others, listen to tips and advice, but find your own path. So, that's kind of the best way I can say it. So today what we're doing, if we go to our journal, in measuring our distance to the lands, our max coal that we can run is 2.943. Now, in the book, Sammy specs is 2.800. So we have over 100 thousandths of room to play, right? So that's what I'm kind of doing here. We're going to do 2.820, and we're going to do 2.840, 2.860, 2.880, and 2.900. We're going to stick with the powder charge of 41.8 with H4350. We're still using the Hornady 143 grain ELDX. So that will, that's going to keep us off of our actual touch point, which was at 2.943. So we're going to try this and kind of, we'll see how it works. And this is another, I'm not going to say necessarily opinion, but if you asked 20 people that reload, and I've asked this question, what's the most important thing, to focus on? Is it the bullet weight? Is it the powder? Is it your touch point and distance, your lands? Like which one, if you had to put, most important piece of the puzzle, or pick the most important piece of the puzzle, which one would you pick? And I've gotten, different answers. Some people put most emphasis on the powder. They're like, I changed my powder brand type charge, and that's where I really noticed or get the most significance in my load development, my groupings. And then I have people, that say, well, I can stick with a recommended load and I just change the bullet weight or brand. And then, that really, gives me a more changes that I see downrange. Then some people have picked and said, well, it's your seating depth. If I can adjust the seating depth, I can take almost like any load in the manual, and throw a bullet in there and adjust the seating depth, and that's where I'm going to see the most significance in my groups. So, my thoughts on it are, and what I've seen, and like I said, don't take this, the wrong way or to the bank or anything. This is just what I've seen in my experience. What I have seen in doing all these processes, I've done each of them. And I've focused on each of them. And just going back to, I always just start out and I try to find like a bullet powder charge combination first. And then if I'm not getting the groups that I want, then I start looking at the seating depth. If you go and you're buying factory ammo off the shelf, I mean, that's going to really go by like Sammy specs for the most part. And so that's going to be, the majority of those cartridges are going to be your 2.800 seating depth. Or the cartridge overall length. So, if you're buying the factory ammo, you're really just trying, different bullet weight and different powders. And all the coal is going to be the same for the most part. So then when you get into reloading, yeah, you have that ability to make those changes. But I think that's why a lot of people that I talk to, they won't change it from the book. Like if it says 2.800, then that's what they're seating all their bullets at. That's just what they're running. And they're going to work on, getting the groups that they want in load development just based around that. So, I mean, like I said, everybody's got their own opinion. And I've done these before, and I've seen it myself as far as I have one rifle where I can change my seating depth, and it's not significant in my group size. But then I've had rifles that, man, they just shoot horrible, or I'm having problems. And then when I go and I change that seating depth, it makes a big difference. So, I mean, anyway, I'm just saying, just something to think about. That's food for thought. You got to decide for yourself. And like I said, everybody's going to have their opinions. I know people are going to comment and say, oh, no, 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 you're putting too much emphasis on one or the other. No. Well, I'm not putting like a strong emphasis on any of it. I just know how I do things so far and what kind of works for me. And I'm always open to changing that and doing different things, and I do value other opinions. But I'm just, also saying that, you know, everybody's thoughts and opinions, you can't use all of them at one time. And, they're not always, it's not the, written in stone type thing that has to be the way it's done. So anyway, the Pua brand new brass, large rifle, primers, CCI, BR2 primers in them, already in. Powder charge we're using 41.8. And then, like I said, the way that I do things, anytime that I'm loading, I always go by tens. So I need for this, I needed 20. I'm going by actual like 5 at a time, but I do it, as far as like, the primers in rows of tens and all that. So if I'm making, I'm either making 10, 20, 30, 40, so I'm going by tens that way. But my groups are going to be by fives. So the first 5-shot group that I make is, let's say the first 2. So the first 10 rounds that I load, I always make the same because I always shoot 5 rounds to kind of clear the barrel and, whatever you want to call it there, get it warmed up, and then I'll put the barrel cooler on it, and then I actually shoot the next 5 rounds and get all my data for that first kind of load, and then I move on. So I have kind of, let's just say, anytime I'm doing load development, then I always have kind of 5 extra rounds, but it's just whatever I'm starting with that I load those. All right, let's start off here and see what we get. And also, I don't know if I'm kind of just carrying you along for the ride, journey, whatever in these projects. I know that I know so many people on YouTube. They make like short and sweet videos, and most of them seem to be around 15 minutes. So I know there's got to be something to that. So maybe my videos, I might be too long-winded and ramble too much, and I don't let me know if you like that, if I should scale it back and try to, maybe like edit out stuff or not record the whole process or whatever the case may be there. I don't know if I need to really like shorten my videos, because I know my videos are kind of long for the most part. And then here's another part that's always opinion. Like some people use a comparator when they're doing this. I don't. So we got 2.8035. So I want to get it down to 2.820. And I should still be off a little bit, but I don't want to go too much at one time. I overshot that one. Okay, so this one's going to be, you know, one of my warm-up or starter loads. All right. And another reason for doing that is if you make mistakes or whatever, then, you know, you kind of got your first 5 that I'm not counting, right? So I'm not collecting data on them. I'm just basically shooting them. Okay, let's see what we get. All right, we got 2.821 and we're looking for 2.820. 2.8195. So I'm actually, you know, I'm going to run with those and not make any more changes. And the thing is, here's another opinion as well. Some people, when they're doing this, they'll measure all of them. Some people measure the first 2 or so and then call it good. That first one that I measure, when I get that where I want, I'm not going to keep measuring. I want all of them consistent, so I want them all to be the same. And if you keep measuring, if you're measuring the way I do, and kind of I talked about before, if you're just measuring to the tip, then there's going to be slight variations, you know, in that plastic tip and the end of the bullet. So, you know, that's where it kind of comes in when you're using the comparator and all that. That's why most people do go that route and use the comparator, because you're getting better, more consistency and more accuracy in your measurement. But I just don't go that route because I just haven't found it necessary. I'm not doing that level of precision, right? So that's just kind of just something else to think about. So yeah, for each 5, I get that first one exactly where I want it, and then I run it. Right? I'm not going to go back and I'm not going to measure anymore in that 5. So I guess the game plan will still be that I'll get these done, and then I'll do another day at the range and I'll video that if at all possible. Now, when I do videos at the range, it kind of varies on who's out there. You know, I looked up the past time I was out there and there wasn't anybody there. I had the 100-yard range to myself. But if I get out there and there's other people out there, of course, I'll have to get permission from them to record. And it's not that I'm recording them or putting them in their videos, but if they're talking, you know, and voices and stuff like that, you know, it'll pick it up on the microphones. So, you know, it's just one of those things, like, you know, to be considerate to others. All right, so this is our next 5, and we want to come up. And let's overshoot it. All right, we're going for 2.840. We got 2.842. Didn't really overshoot it much. I thought I was overshooting it a little bit more, but just barely come down. All right, 2.840 on the dot. So, like I said, I've measured that one out. I'm calling that good. So this 5, I'm running them all the same. Hopefully I have enough powder yet. Looks like I do. I ordered some more H4350. Also, another thing, I primarily stick with Hodgdon powders just because that's what's sold here locally, right? I haven't seen Vitavory and the Reliance and some of that stuff, or it's just harder to find locally. So, so I stick with Hodgdon powder just because that's usually what I can get. Now I went to go buy some more 4350 and couldn't find any, so I ordered some from Midway. Well, another powder I do want to get into and try the Vitavory at some point. Never tried any of it, but I do plan to when I can at some point or another. But for right now, I'm just sticking with what I got and what I know. Other than, I've heard a lot of people, and in the comments, somebody was talking about using the Stay-Ball 6.5. I do want some of that, and I have seen it locally, but they didn't have it this past time when I looked for it. So I was going to order it from Midway, and they're sold out of it as well. So no luck on the Stay-Ball 6.5 right now. I'll have to pick that one up next time. But, you know, not only, like I said, somebody put in the comments that they have had good luck with that powder, with 6.5Creedmoors. And I think I also saw it listed, you know, in the manual for 7mm 08 as well. So I might can try it on both of them. So I definitely want to get some of that to try out. All right. Did I double charge this one? I may have. think I did. Guess I got distracted and double charged one. Focus and pay attention on what you're doing. I'm kind of talking, rambling, and I have some other things on my mind. And I'm actually going to dump this because when I poured that in there, I don't want to take the chance that it kind of changed anything. There. Yeah, always best when you're doing reloading. Focus on what you're doing. While, you know, you can make some mistakes. You know, this is almost a full case, so I don't really, you know, there's not much of a way you can put a double charge to it. You'll know if you've done that like I just did. All right. All right, we're going for 2.860. We've got, that's probably on the money. Yeah, okay, 2.860. I thought, and you know, it might be the inconsistency measuring to the tip, you know, and who knows what like variation there'll be there, but I bumped it up 2 thousandths over when I was coming up what I thought it would be. But yeah, that's on the money. That's what we want. So let's run these 5. Always look in your case and just verify that the powder's there too. I think I mentioned that before as well, and it wasn't with this funnel. It was a cheaper funnel that I had. And for whatever reason, I just didn't see it or notice it. So I dropped the powder in, and I went and looked in it, and it looked light. And then I noticed like some of the powder was still like in the funnel neck, so all of it didn't drop. So it's one of those things, you know, when you just look at your case, you can, you know, just take a look and make sure it looks like it dropped all of it, or look in the funnel, however you want to do it. And then going back, I know a lot of people, when I watch reloading videos, they only load like 5, or, you know, just shorten it or fast forward through it. I'm kind of leaving it up to you guys watching. You know, you can fast forward through if you want, because there's nothing overly entertaining here than me continuing on with the process and then rambling while I'm doing it. After I get these done, I gotta actually start loading up the truck. I'm taking the kids camping. And the only thing that I'm worried about there is that tomorrow it's like a 95% chance of rain and thunderstorms. So we're tent camping, so we'll see how that goes. All right. So we want 2.880, we've got 2.8825. So, and like I said, when I'm dialing this up, I'm just going 2 thou over each time. So I went 2 thou down. So it should be right about what we want. .880 on the dot. So another thing that I love opinions on, and I'm curious of what yours would be. So, like I said, what we have is what I say our max was. Let me look at my notes. So our max coal that we can use is 2.943. So then the max that we're loading for is 2.900. So roughly, you know, we're still doing 43 thousandths, you know, off our touch point, even at our max here. So I guess, and I'd said before in a video, you know, I was talking about Eric Cortino when I watched his videos, and he was going through how to determine coal and his process and all. And I think I'd said at that time, you know, that he starts off at 2 thousandths off, and that correction there, I was wrong, and I wasn't thinking. He was talking about when he did when he's resizing the case, you know, he likes to bump the case back 2 thousandths. So I think, you know, a lot of videos that I've watched, a lot of people when they're coming to their land's touch point, you know, however you want to refer to it, a lot of people start off, it seems, at, well, let's not say a lot of people. This goes back to opinions as well. I've seen videos, some people say that they almost want it, you know, where there's no jump, and they want it right at the touch point. And some people actually jam it in there. I've known people to do that. Well, when you start doing that, you know, it's going to change like your pressure and everything. So I never have attempted that, or it's just something I haven't done. You know, I just stay away from it. So then I've seen others where they say, well, their starting point is they usually start 10 thousandths off their touch point, you know, and kind of work from there. I've also talked to people and seen videos where they say basically like any load they do, they'll find their lands, their touch point, and then they just have a standard that they go for. They just always do 10 thousandths off or 20 thousandths off, or, you know, kind of right in that range. And in their opinion and in their mind, and what they've seen, their experience, I guess, they've seen that's kind of maybe the sweet spot, you know, to where that's how much jump they actually want. So there's a lot of different opinions and variation on that as well. I like to do it this way, you know, as far as I look at my touch point and what the max coal is that, you know, that I could use in getting there. And then I just kind of pick a point and start back. And I also take into account, let me go ahead and set this while I'm thinking about it before I pull the handle. I look at the magazine as well, and then I want to see like what the maximum coal is that I can fit in the magazine. Some people, you know, if you're single feeding and all, that's not going to matter, but, you know, it's something that I always consider. Trying to get this kind of even on here. Get the best I can. 2.901. We're going for 2.90, so we're going to go one more. And we're probably just going to call that good anyway. We're at 2.9005, so we're running with that, calling it good. But yeah, this is, I mean, you know, you can go that route and just pick one and run with it. I think it, in my opinion, it is going to vary by the barrel. I mean, what is that rifle like? You know, how much of a jump does it like? And you know, I haven't seen really, depending on the rifle, you know, you might not see huge differences in these, and we might take this out to the range, and when I shoot it, I might, you know, it might take where we're going like 20 thousandths at a time. Well, between two, I might not see any difference, and I've seen that happen, you know, to where 20 or 40 thousandths, I don't see any difference. But with some rifles, I have seen a difference. So that's why I'm kind of doing 20 thou at a time, you know, just to see with this rifle, I mean, does it make a difference? What is it really like? And then when we kind of get our best group out of this, then I'll go back and then, depending on the group. So if one of these at the powder charge that's in there, if I get down to 1/2-inch groups, then I'm going to leave it alone. This is not a competition rifle. I don't care about trying to get 1/4-inch groups with it. I mean, which that would be nice. That's always nice. But I'm just not taking it that far. I don't need to. You know, like I said, this is going to be a deer hunting rifle within 100 yards. So I'm just not going to be that precise with it and that picky. All right, that's a wrap. I guess the next video on this one you'll see will be at the range. Then after, I do want to do one more step with this rifle, even though if I do get down to 1/2-inch groups or better, I'll call it good as far as that goes. But one other thing I want to do with this rifle, my original intention was to use these ELDX, but just to try something different, and like I said I was going to do, I did buy the Nosler AccuBonds. So these are 130 grain. So they're a lighter bullet, but game recommendations, all big game. But I just want to try them out. I almost hope, you know, these are highly recommended by a lot of people, but I almost hope that I don't like them. I didn't pay attention when I ordered these that it's a 50 count box. So, you know, comparative to the Hornady, you know, which comes in 100, these were already more anyway. So these are pretty expensive. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on the Nosler or the AccuBond. They also have the AccuBond long range, which I'm not shooting this long range, so I wasn't concerned about that. But I'm gonna shoot those too, you know. So one of those things, as we're talking about here, when you're going to find your coal, with each you know, if you change the bullet, the weight and everything, then you're going to need to find your max coal again with that bullet. So I'll go through that step. I doubt I'm going to do a video on that because I've already shown, you know, the process I use, and I use the Hornady tool. So I'll get a max length with that one, and I'm sure it'll be, you know, like similar, but you know, it'll be a little bit different, especially since the weight is different on that bullet. So yeah, after we shoot these and get what I think will be, you know, a good jump for the bullet, a good coal, then I will load up some AccuBond too. Probably around that. Now, being a different weight is going to change everything, so I'll probably try to pick some around that, and then, you know, kind of I don't know, it's probably going to change like a lot with the powder charge and everything. So I might just do, you know, I might almost start over and work on you know, just checking out some different powder charges with that one, and then also do different seating depths. So I don't know, stay tuned. I know this ended up being long. I appreciate everybody that watches and do all the things, like, subscribe. I am going to try to grow the channel as much as I can. Let me know any of your thoughts. Let me know if I do need to scale it back, if I'm being too long-winded, or you find any value to the longer videos. I really am curious of everybody's thoughts there, to help guide me in what I need to do with my videos in the channel. And then let me know anything you'd like to see. Like, do you want me to make a video on, do you want me to go through the steps again with the AccuBond and getting the coal in the way I do it? Do you want to see me do, you know, a different method, which I've done before, where, you know, you use a shot case, a fired round, and you know, it'd be sacrificial, and then use Loctite? You want to see me do that? Just let me know anything you want to see. You know, I'm all about trying to make videos that would help anybody and be, I guess, entertaining at the same time. So again, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it.